God bless you. Hey, Facebook family, this is Al Laws and my wife, Aisha Laws.
Hello.
And here we are again for another Facebook Live every Tuesday evening at 8:30. And here we're here again. And we good to see you. Remember, I love this environment that we come into. And every week we're trying to get do here on Advice for Life. We're using new technology, and it's so funny. I saw Galen's finger in there, but y'all, I don't know how his finger got in there. But anyway, we use new technology to help us be better, and I wait for my family to come. They join us. What's so beautiful about what we do here is that we allow other people to give their feedback. Them as they share with us and show us what they have experienced, and they can make comments on what's going on. We're broadcasting to you from the Inner Harbor, downtown Baltimore. So we're excited to be with you this evening. Remember, you and you want to do that because I'm about to do this very dynamic series called How You Relate to Your Money. And everybody wants to know how to relate to their money.
They should.
Everybody wants to know how to do that. So what I'm going to, I want you to absolutely make sure that you follow me, because only those who follow me will be able to get access to that. And it'll change your financial life. I think it'll change your life, period. Because I think the principles, as I weave them in, are going to give you some tremendous insights for business, for how to just be wise in everything that you invest in your life. So you don't want to miss that. Follow me. Also go on our website. That's advice, the number 4 dot life. I'm sorry, advice, the number 4 life.us. That's advice, the number 4 life.us, and you will see an array of programs. You can go to our podcasts, and we have about 100 podcasts on there now, and
Wow.
and videos that you can also look at, and those videos will help you. And the great thing about the podcast is if you can't take the time to look at the videos right away, you can actually go and listen to it while you're working out.
Right.
Listen to it while you're washing the dishes. Oh, that's right. You don't wash dishes. I forgot about that. You use your dishwasher. While you're turning on your dishwasher. Whatever you're doing, you can still be with us, and you can get new and updated and exciting information. And as I'm going to remind you over and over again, that you share, it's fair. So I need you to go to the left-hand corner of your device and hit share, and share to everyone. And you know, as I always love that you put up your thumbs up and your hearts, because that lets us know that you are with us and that you appreciate us. And I see my family coming on. I see Nicole joined us. We had a wonderful time with you a couple months ago. And Angela, she always pulls up to the table. I see Mom Blamaville came on.
Hi, Mommy.
And yes, and Washana, I see you. Thank you for joining. Stacy, good to see you. I see the thumbs up and the hearts. It's just good to have you guys with us. And what we're going to do this week is we're going to talk, and I'll chime in. Remember, as a family, you should be making comments. You should be giving your feedback, and you should be helping us in this dialogue, because this is a dialogue. It should not just be a monologue of us just speaking.
Right.
We're leading the conversation, and you're helping us in that dynamic. So we're going to take off from what we did last week, which was about expectations and
unrealistic expectations.
Or realistic.
Realistic,
right. So not being unrealistic, but really dealing with realistic expectations and the associated images that we get and that we carry and that we project in relationship.
Right.
And I was just thinking, as I thought about it, honey, like what happens a lot of times is that when we're young, when we're growing up, remember, we start out with imaginary friends. I I mean, we start
I guess
out
some of
with
us
images.
do.
I mean, a lot of us do. There's a lot of us have some type of thing, something that we imagine, or some people imagine how their wedding's going to be.
Right.
Or some people imagine what kind of that first car they get, what that motorcycle's going to be when they feel it and get it on it for the first time. All of us carry images because what a lot of image is really about something that you are projecting that you really don't have a realistic experience with.
Right.
You don't have a realistic is a it's a holding place for your expectation.
Right.
Now, we'll talk about this as we're talking about expectation because I'm going to connect and I'm going to give you some very deep things about how you connect expectation and images. It's going to bless you. It's going to blow. Talking last week about that importance, that value of us being able to have realistic expectations,
right,
and not allow the images that we carry to block us from engaging in a way where we can communicate with the people in our lives, whether it's our husband, our wife, whether it's our boyfriend, whether it's our mother or our children, whether it's our boss or teacher in school,
or ourselves. I think a lot of times we do that with ourselves.
Right.
You know, those images that you were just discussing that we have when we're children about what's supposed to be the perfect car or the goals that you're going to reach in life.
Right.
If they don't happen at a certain age or a certain time frame or whatever,
right,
then we can be disappointed with ourselves because we created an image in our minds and in
Right.
our soul, and we reach for that goal, and that's fine to reach for a goal.
Mm-hmm.
But God will guide those paths.
Right.
You know, God is
Right.
the one that's going to do that.
Right.
So.
And that disappointment is really about is to project,
Mm-hmm.
and it anticipates in Webster's or any other dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
it talks about expectation is to project, to anticipate. Now, you know, I think it's so important because what the word that comes to me is preempt. You know, that we anticipate and we project how and the way that something should be, or how or the way somebody should say something, or how somebody should behave, how they should respond to us in situations. And sometimes that expectation we have is spoken, and sometimes it's unspoken. Sometimes we carry an image that we expect. So that's what we were talking about last week, about how that image blocks us from really communicating to people what our real expectation is, what we really want for ourselves. But remember what I shared last week is that if your focus is on what you want for yourself, you are always going to be in a place where you're going to have unrealized expectations or met, and you're going to always be in a situation because you are focused on yourself. And that's why we got to get deeper into it, because if you're focused on yourself, you miss the whole point. Realistic expectations are expectations that have been communicated, that are not reasonable. Remember we said last time one person's reason is different than the other. So it's not based on your reason.
Right.
It's based on what's realistic, based on the communication in any relationship. I mean, if I'm dealing with my child, I have to have realistic expectation.
Absolutely.
Not based on how I reason they should respond. But
Or even how you were when you were a child.
Exactly.
Because that can become an image within itself.
Right.
How I was as a child is definitely going to be different.
I was a good child.
I was a good baby.
I was a good baby. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that my children are going to be just like mommy.
Right.
That doesn't mean that.
Right. Okay, so I got some feedback from my family. Somebody said there was a bad connection. Did we get that fixed? Everybody, can I get a thumbs up and a heart if the connection is still good? and everything's coming through. Oh my goodness, I see Miss
Kim
Kim Selby coming on,
Selby.
and Rhonda, nice. Can tell. I see you can tell. So listen, thumbs up, hearts. If the connection is good, give it to me strong. Everybody hit good. And remember to hit your share button down on the left hand corner. Share it out. Put it out there.
Is that Karen? Cousin Karen is on.
Yeah. Nice. Hey, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
So we'll get back. I want you, as you guys are giving your comments, make sure you give your feedback on what you're hearing us say. So you were saying, what were you saying again? I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you.
I was just saying that doesn't mean that my children are going to be like I was when I was a child.
Oh, yeah.
They are very different children.
Right. Mm-hmm. Did you have something else?
Always.
Go ahead.
I want us to really talk about how we deal with ourselves, because how we deal with ourselves really gets projected out onto the person that is in our lives.
Okay.
So when we have these expectations, looking for expectations outside of ourselves. When we meet our expectations, and we're looking for everyone to meet the expectation. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Did I say that properly?
I think so.
So if I'll give you a personal example. I was supposed to have 10 kids.
Right.
When I was a little girl, I wanted 10 children. That was exactly what I wanted.
Okay.
I have 2. So now if I project that out on someone else and they don't want any children, I'm like, how could you not want kids?
Right.
The expectation is that everybody wants kids. Right? That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And we have expectations that we have for ourselves properly, so that we don't project them on others.
Sure, because the projection, so that's a different aspect. So one is anticipating, and expectation. You already kind of project and preempt what you think it should be.
Right.
And the other one is to project what you have defined within yourself, your own expectation, and you project that on others.
Right.
And that's why when we talked about before, when people get into misunderstandings, a lot of times is based on how they both see it. Whether I think it's right or whether you think it's right, how I see it, how you see it. And I think a very skillful way for people, and here's something that you can take with you, is that when you get to a place where you recognize that somebody is not meeting your quote unquote expectations, your first response is to recognize that you have to share with them. But I think before you share something, you have to look within yourself. Why do I expect that?
Right.
What is my reason? Do I expect that because of my own past experience? Because expect it. Am I expecting
That's
that?
a deep one.
Yeah, right. Say that. Right.
That's a deep one, and there's no other way, because there's always another way.
There's always another way, but we might get stuck and think it's not another way. Is that expectation coming from something that I know is pleasing to God? It has a standard, just what you want, and that's what the root of your expectation is. You're always going to be coming, even when you're presenting to somebody, communicating based on yourself and selfishness.
Right.
Now, there's nothing wrong with communicating what you want, but you have to first examine it. You have to first take the time to recognize and see and assure yourself that you have looked at it when you communicate that expectation in a way. And you have to consider the other person. So when you go in and you're examining your own heart, you have to also be examining in that same heart that other person.
Right.
Where are they coming from, and what is their expectation? Am I connecting to what I perceive their expectation is, or what they've communicated with me is their expectation? That's part of that work in doing that.
I think a good rule of thumb is to have one constant expectation of both yourself and everyone in your life. And that constant expectation is for everyone to be willing to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is an expectation that we all must share. And then you can release that person from an expectation that even they might have, so that they have the space to grow. Because if we're looking for growth immediately, or we're expecting things that are unreasonable on a consistent basis, and not, then we won't identify the growth that the person has.
Now, what happens when the person, you feel like you communicated with the person
Okay.
over and over and over again,
Okay.
and you felt like you came to an understanding, but they still fall short of your expectation? What do you do?
Okay.
That's my question.
So an example would be in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
A couple talks about that person, instead of screaming and yelling, they leave the room, go to the bathroom, and have a timeout. And so now they're having a timeout, and you have a choice to make. You can choose to be angry about them leaving the room. You can choose to be grateful, so you have time to cool down yourself. Or you can choose to be gracious.
Huh.
Now, they've grown. That's growth.
Right.
That they didn't curse you out, that they didn't scream and yell, but it wasn't the best that they left the room, because that infuriates people, when you're in the middle of a conversation, they just start leaving the room.
Right.
That can be infuriating, but it's better. It is absolute growth. I think it's good to point out that growth,
right.
to pull that and point to that person, say thank you, because I see you're trying, I see your efforts,
right,
and you have to point it out, even in the midst of your kerfuffle.
Right. Okay, that's a new one. I don't know that word. I think for most people it's all or nothing.
Yes.
Especially when
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, especially when it comes to what they want and how they want it, and their way. It's all or nothing.
Right.
So you will get to a place where you have communicated to someone and they have tried to make a step towards that.
Mm-hmm.
They have tried. But you may respond to them as though they haven't done anything. Go again. I thought we talked about that. Don't say I thought we talked about that. How come this keeps coming? So, but you didn't give no acknowledgement.
Right.
And what we call that is that we are going to reflect people's behaviors. You either did that or you did nothing.
I think it's good to look at it from a baby's perspective. So we know that. So we give the baby a lot of grace.
Right.
When they first start walking, they don't walk immediately. They crawl. You don't get mad at the baby. Stand up, for God's sakes. Your hands are on the floor, and then you're going to eat with that? We don't do that, because we know he's new to this. And so when someone is new to this, just because it's your way, we walk, they crawl. So when someone's crawling, there's no need for you to go and kick them.
Right.
It's better for you to hold their hand when they're trying to stand up,
right,
to help them and assist them. Because you have to focus on your goal. I say that a lot. You have to focus on your goal. If your goal is to get them to the walking state, then you can't kick them while they're crawling, because they're just going to crawl away from you.
Kick me while I'm down, and then I'm going to run away.
Right. You have to encourage them. At least they're moving.
Yes.
At least they're moving.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that I mean, all of us have to get to a place where we, something becomes functional. I mean, but you have to be being patient in that process and being skillful in that process. I do believe we do have to get to a place how we're connecting and how we're communicating and how we're relating has to be functional. It can't be dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. And so, but we're just talking about how you make steps towards that. And somebody said this to me before too, and it's important. If you want the relationship to work, say you don't want the relationship to work. I mean, who doesn't want? So, but I see that the most frustration and the least amount of patience once they get past the baby stage. You're right. When people have a little infant, they have a lot of patience for the infant. Infant can do no wrong, but when they start getting older,
and you got a teenager in the house, and patience goes out the window,
right?
Because they're supposed to know,
right?
Because they're the same size as you.
And that's what I like what you just said. They're supposed to know. So I've heard this from people before too. Well, they're grown folk. They're supposed to know,
right?
But with my wife, what you just shared, honey, is really important. Mm-hmm. People know what they know. Right. People are where they are.
Right.
So when you're entering into any type of relationship, except for, of course, your immediate family, your mother, your father, you don't get to choose those relationships, but relationships that you choose, you have to assess what the person is working on and whether you're willing to work on that, right? And you might not know the depth of it, but you still can see it.
It gives me an example in my brain about when I became a Christian.
Okay.
When I first came to meet the Lord, and I started going to a church. I wasn't raised in a Christian household,
right?
So I started going to a church, and it was years before anyone mentioned to me anything about getting baptized. No one ever said it because you're just supposed to know. Right. I don't know why you're supposed to know because I'm new to this. And this is the kind of thing that we do because I'm an adult. You're supposed to know. Like it's just logical.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Everybody knows that, right?
Baptized Jesus met John and he got baptized. They even got a whole sect of Christianity called Baptists.
Uh-huh.
And you don't know about baptism.
I don't know what my problem was, but I didn't know, okay?
Or Episcopal. Taking the holy smoke and it chokes you when you come by? Episcopal.
I think they do have that.
I know they do.
Incense. It's not smoke.
Yeah, it's incense. I said
yes.
Smoke coming out of the thing. It's a
right.
little urn. I mean, it's smoke coming. It smells good. Well, it don't smell good to me, but I'm sure it smells good to some people.
It does smell nice. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So let me check in with who's come in so far.
All right.
So I am trying to make sure I see Dorothy Parker. She says is going in and out, out and in. So I'm seeing that it's still going. Is it still doing that, everybody? I just want to make sure that you're still connected. So give me some thumbs up and hearts. I'm sorry about that if it's going in and out. I see Kirk Baker. Hey, Kirk. It says, hello, everyone. I hope our story can help. We shared our story to be a light in the time of darkness. And he has a YouTube connection.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Kirk, thank you for life. And Aaliyah.
That's my baby. Hi, baby.
Aaliyah, I'm looking forward to seeing you graduate.
So proud of you.
Yeah, that's a big move, and I think. Okay, so they're saying it's mostly good. So we're going to continue.
Okay, good.
And we'll hopefully fix that glitch in here. So I want to make a statement about expectation. I believe that when people live through their expectations, because remember I said expectation is anticipating. It's preempting the situation always, rather than they live through their expectations rather than living in the reality of what's in the moment.
Okay.
So let's say I expect I have an expectation. It's been communicated. It's clear. And then the person does not fulfill that expectation or that agreement that we've had. I either can live through the expectation that I have, or when I confront the person, because I'm not saying don't confront. I'm not saying act like, oh, we didn't talk about it. Act like, this was not part of what we had talked about should happen. But when I confront the person, I'm talking to them in that moment, in the reality of the moment. So I'm trying my best to really connect with them in that moment. And I think that's important, because what I believe what happens is, what also I said associates with expectations, aberrations. An aberration just kind of means like an image to happen. Mm-hmm. I want to read that because
like a hologram.
Yeah, see, so we creating these images again. So I'm going here. I'm looking at aberration. Optics, of a ray of light such that they can no longer be brought to a sharp focus and form a clear image. And then it says a defect in a camera lens system due to flaws in the system material or construction and can distort the image. So that's where, I want to get to the fact that what can happen is that you cannot allow the expectations in your life, because I'm ultimately saying that we should know that God really provides for our need. Anything else we get along the extra is good. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that expectations will cause you to have these aberrations. You will lose focus on what you really should be looking at, because you shouldn't be living and looking primarily through the expectation. You should really be looking in the here and now with what God has for you to do in your relationship with that person in the moment.
Right.
And you lose focus when you are stuck in your expectations. And I love this part, what it says, and it will distort the proper image that you should have. Because as my wife says, and you say this very powerfully, honey, that we should be looking at every person as the image of God. Mm-hmm. That we should see their image, and that should be our focus. So when I see the image of God, if I really see that person as a representation of God, I'm going to talk to them different.
Yeah, you are.
I'm going to say that I'm going to approach them, and that would be different if I did not see them.
Your focus is not going to be on the flaw.
That won't be your primary thing. You won't start with the flaw.
You won't start with that, because it's not, we can be honest and say that we've prayed for things and didn't get what we expected. We prayed for things and didn't get what we expected.
And we couldn't see what we got.
And we couldn't, exactly. We expected this over here, didn't get that, got this over there instead. And so we can be gracious with one another when we recognize that that's the same relationship we have with God.
Right.
We have all these expectations and
blab
it, grab it. Is that what you say sometimes?
Name it, claim it, blab it, grab it.
And maybe God has a different order, a different design, a different path.
Right.
A different purpose.
You live through your expectations. So you have an expectation that you want God to do something a certain way.
Right.
But he brings it a different way. Mm-hmm. So now so now you are in this place where you always are walking around with unmet expectations.
Whew.
Y'all need to hear what I just said.
It's nursing wounds.
I might drop the mic on this one right here.
He's gonna drop the mic.
This mic right here. I'm gonna drop this mic. This floating. No. We have this tendency to walk in our lives with unfulfilled expectations or unfulfilled images. You are not supposed to fulfill all the images that you have. You're supposed to fulfill the image of God that is in you, and the images that God and what God has set forth in your life. He has an image. He has an idea. He has a plan for what he has for you.
Right.
And you can't even walk around when you're in relationship with somebody with all these, unmet and you're disconcerted because your images and your expectations haven't been met because they're in. Right. You're just a vessel to help shape this process. And if you are patient and if you do it God's way, he will let you enjoy the ride as he transforms you and the other person.
That's right. I think that's powerful because if we really have all these expectations, our significant other, our children, our parents even, then we're not moving according to our purpose, and they're not able to move according to theirs because we've created the image. We've done it. So as they walk and as they move, they're breaking those idols. They're moving in their purpose and tearing down the idols that are in us.
Right.
Pushing aside those images is important.
Oh, I love what you said with that. Pushing aside image, because you always have to contemplate, is the image about what I want and how I want it more important than the person themselves?
Well, no one could ever meet that image. No one could ever meet it because you're never going to be satisfied. Once they fulfill the cook 7 days a week, then if there's a pot left in the sink, then that's a problem. There's always going to be some issue somewhere.
Right. Because, the reality of it is that, nobody can live up to imaginary friends. I mean, that's the whole beauty of imagery. Like, you create it, it's the way you want it and how you see it. Change is the way you want it to change. But nobody lives in imagery land. Because what I'm really getting to is that we all have flaws. We have flaws. Flaws, and we all have failures. And the issue is that we have to be in a place where we are within ourselves. I mean, that's what you said earlier, is that really what you are promoting and pushing each other is to grow. At the point that somebody's not willing to grow and to change, well, that's giving you a message in itself. Absolutely. Maybe you're not the person to help them move on in their life. You might be a blockage to them if if that happens. But what I'm saying is that if people want to be together and if people are willing and committed to growing, then there's nothing that they can't get through. But there's a recognition that we all are working on something. And so sometimes we come as we're engaging with somebody as though we ain't working on nothing. Like this is all your work. You got to work. Right. Because as soon as you get your work done, I'm going to be good. I'll be fine as soon as all your work is done. Right. And that, that's going to cause frustration. People are going to walk around frustrated because they have unmet, quote unquote, expectations. And as we said last week, I forget what you were saying about, you were saying something, but anyway, I think you were communicating about the fact that you have to communicate. I can read your mind. And so in both of those things, nobody can read your mind. And sometimes we don't read our own minds because in touch with where we are. We're not in touch with our thoughts, with our intentions. And as I teach all the time is that you have to be in touch with those things. That's why I teach about the awareness wheel. That's why I'm teaching you about realistic expectations, because really if you become really good at understanding being realistic in your expectations, your chances of creating a dynamic in a relationship that is going to be real. People say keep it real. Well, I'm gonna tell you how to keep it real. You want to keep it real? Have realistic expectations, and start with the fact that your life should not be lived through you having all these types of expectations that you have on somebody, and you don't have the. Matter of fact, I'm gonna say it like this: if you have more expectations for others than you have for yourself, you've already lost the game.
Right.
You've already lost the game. You should have way more expectations for yourself, and any expectation that you have for somebody else, you should be willing to look within yourself and say, I want to talk to you about that I've been willing to look at for myself. And if you're not willing to do that, if you haven't done that, it's just about what you want and how you want it.
And even when we fail expectations for ourselves, we do want our loved one to come up beside us, hold our hand, and say, "You'll get it next time. Don't worry about it." Everybody fails sometimes.
Right.
We don't want someone to say, "See, you do that all the time," and and kick us while we already know. We already know we failed. And it's even harder when it's not just you failing at your own expectation, but you failed for your loved one. If
Right.
I let Big Daddy down, and that's way bigger than just letting myself down. So it's important that we're gracious to one another, because it's what we would want. If it's what we would want, then we should do it.
Right.
And I think it's important. I shared last week that these flaws that we see in one another. If someone that you love is not meeting your expectations and disappointing you, these things are shown to us in confidence. This is for you to pray. This is for you to encourage and minister to. This is not an opportunity for you to point fingers and put the person down.
Yeah, but it's hard. When you believe that you have tried and tried and tried in a dynamic, and you still are not getting what you need. That's.
So what decisions do you make? You can't stay and make a decision to beat the person.
Right.
So if you're staying, then you have to release them. You have to release them.
Right.
Move that expectation to God's row.
Right.
So that you can stay in peace.
Right.
Because if you can't remain in peace,
right,
then you're not good for one another. You'll just be wounding each other consistently.
Right. And we said that we talked about some expectations are basic expectations.
Oh,
I still think
absolutely.
they should be communicated. We were talking about what Karen said last week, that people jump so fast in a relationship and they go down the road, and then they haven't even talked about things. They assume certain things. So you assume that the person you're with have the same convictions that you have about fidelity,
right,
and about how you should relate in a relationship. You assume that because that's what you believe is right, and you still should say something. You still should take the time to understand where that person is coming from with that,
right.
Because if they don't have the same belief system, if they don't believe what you believe, if they kind of some of the same what I call basic things, it's okay, because that might not be basic for them. Maybe they think it's all right for people to not be faithful to each other. But you should find that out. You should know that,
right,
and then determine whether you want to work with it. And you say this all the time, Aisha.
Yeah, we can see.
So you see people when you're engaging. We see our children.
Yeah.
We can see them. Our children can see us.
Can't hide from your babies,
Can't help
y'all.
it. I saw things in my parents as I was growing up from the young age, and I know when I look back, they didn't think I could see it.
Right.
They actually thought they were hiding it from
Right.
me. So I'm clear that I'm not hiding nothing from my children. They
Nope.
see,
They know us.
they know, they see the things, and sometimes they'll slip in and tell us
No.
about ourselves.
They don't be slipping. They tell me all the time.
So the bottom line, we see each other, and so when you are,